Hey everyone! Welcome again from wonderful, and this time actually sunny, southern Sweden. Behind me is the lovely city of Gothenburg. I hiked up to this high point in Hisingen Parken with my dog Isa and Shelva, a little Huska toy. Came up here to talk about the halls of the dead. A lot of people ask me about where do they go when they die. So I want to go to Valhalla, Valhalla, Valhalla. But there are a number of other places that are used in the Norse cosmology and a lot of other places that we can go that have been enumerated in the sagas and different tales. So I'm going to butcher a lot of the pronunciations here, but I have done some research about it, about locations, halls, and what have you. A lot of people keep asking me about where they would go and what are the other options, because we've commonly accepted, Valhalla isn't really that wonderful. It is the Hall of the Slain. You're going to do battle forever, and of course only half of those chosen who die in battle go there. The other half go to Freya's Hall, Folkvanger. So, in Folkvanger. But let's get into it. First, I will talk about places that we go when we die. Possible places that we go when we die. Of course, we know about Valhalla. And Valhalla is something I should have said many times we shouldn't aspire to. Valhalla is a place of endless toil, turmoil, suffering, fighting. Yeah, you feast every night, but you wake up to kill each other every day. We know it has 640 doors with 100 warriors abreast that can come through them. That is the Einherjar, who will fight on the side of the gods at Ragnarok. But, everybody says victory of Valhalla. However, Valhalla is not really a peaceful afterlife. It's more so akin to a concept of hell, but, we glorify some of the aggression that is existing in Asatru and Scandinavian folklore. So the other hall would be Folkvanger, or actually it's not Folkvanger. It's Sesrumnir, Freya's Hall, in the field of Folkvanger. Folkvanger is just a field of hosts, a field of warriors, where half of all those who are slain in battle and chosen by the Valkyries go. You remember, Freya gets the first pick, and they say it will be tended upon by women. I don't really know if that's a modern add-on from Christian influence or not, but Freya gets the first half of those chosen in battle to be slain, and then Odin gets a second. Remember, to be chosen in battle, you really got to be like Hercules or Beowulf or some kind of demigod. You have to be something special. You just can't run out and get your arm chopped off. There's another place for people that die in battle that aren't so heroic and aren't such Superman, Ubermensch, if you really want to look at it that way. There are actually multiple places enumerated for those people to go to. So, other places that we know the dead go, Ludnir. Ludnir is the Hall of Hell. And Hell is said to rule the eponymous region of Hell that at different times is described to different areas. Most of the time we'll accept that it's in Niflheim. It is somewhat of an underworld, morally ambiguous. Oftentimes they say that if you were a farmer, you will go there and live in kind of a mirror shadow world. Maybe never as bright and sunny, but also it's not sorrowful and suffering. You will be with your family and your loved ones. So she rules over her kingdom with the Hall of Ludnir. It means sprayed with snow, and she is told by Odin to receive those who die of sickness or old age. You might remember that Baldur is the honor seat of her table in Ludnir. But Ludnir is massive. I mean, she rules an entire realm of the world by herself. Now, Niflheim and Niflhel are oftentimes used synonymously, where they are kind of different places. They do overlap, but Niflheim is one of the 9 realms, and Niflhel is a part of Hel's realm. Niflhel would be like shrouded in fog and darkness, and Niflhel is where they say that those who deserve to suffer kind of go, or it's a darker, worse place. But, like I said, it's kind of morally ambiguous, even though there are lots of names that imply sorrow and fear and suffering. I won't go through it all now, but if you look at Hermod's Ride to Hell, and then how Odin, when he travels into Hell, the river they cross is, filled with swords and knives and made of steel, and there's a glittering bridge, and it has the dog Garm on it, and right at her house is a threshold called Fjallanifjord, which means falling to peril. So there is a lot of dark imagery there, even though it is said to be morally ambiguous. Now there is another place, Nustrand, I hope that's correct, it's Corpse Beach. And that's where Nidhogg chews and tortures those guilty of adultery, murder, oath breakers, any of that. So that is like the most akin to the Abrahamic concept of their hell, H-E-double-L, not H-E-L. And then there is Vegavmir, which would be the home of Nidhogg. And it's also a place where he chews up and kind of tortures those who break oath, who sacrifice, who don't sacrifice and do the worst kinds of things, as in correlation to the ancient Norse world, which, being morally ambiguous themselves, their Germanic law would make things that we might look on as negative not necessarily be evil. So murder was specifically defined as unjustified killing. So it's murder, oath breaking, and adultery, because adultery was still bad if you broke the confines of taking another man's wife. It's also ambiguous when it gets to your own wife. So there is a couple other places mentioned in the writings about Ragnarok. So there's Vingolf, Gimli, Oklonir, and Brimir. Oklonir is a place. So Vingolf is known as the Friends Hall, or the Pleasant Hall, the Welcoming Hall. It's described as the hall of all the Aesir goddesses, and kind of used synonymously with a holy grove. We know the ancient Germanic tribesmen, continental to Scandinavian, worshipped in holy groves. But when the Icelanders wrote things down, they kind of lost the holy grove because Iceland was desolate and rock and not really forested. So the concept of the holy grove is not as much of a forefront of importance as it should be. So Vingolf is a holy grove. It's a place, and it's said to be a place where all righteous men and those slain in battle go. So when we're kind of thinking about Valhalla, we should really be referencing Vingolf, because that's where those righteous and honorable men who die in battle. Maybe you went into battle when you were 13. Maybe you went to protect your home, right? That's righteous. That's virtuous. But you go and you get killed because you're just a normal warrior. So that maybe is what we should obsess upon, instead of the concept of Valhalla and how it's really spread through different militaries in the U.S. and also around the world, and branches in the U.S. and around the world. It's like, victory of Valhalla, I'm going to Valhalla, my friends died, don't tell me they didn't go to Valhalla. Hey man, they're in Vingolf, you know? I doubt anybody's really going to help the gods with Anir with swords if they're from modern warfare. But I'm sorry if that's offensive. Forget that. Strike that from this. That's just my opinion. Then there's Brimir. It's a hall for all the souls of virtuous men or virtuous people following Ragnarok. Apparently it is in the location of Oklonir. So Brimir presumably is all those who died in the events of Ragnarok, maybe those that didn't die in battle, but the events leading up to Ragnarok, those when brothers were fighting brothers and starvation and everything. So if you're good and virtuous and not dying in battle, you would wind up there. And then there is Sindri, another hall for good and righteous. It is the closest akin to the Christian concept of heaven, so we don't really know how much influence is there, but it's just supposed to be a peaceful place. It's made of red and gold, and it is in Nithjol. Now, which is interesting because the Nithjol Mountains is where Nidhogg lives, but it does show, and this is why it's so close to heaven, it shows salvation after suffering. And that's why they postulate its similarity to the Christian concept of heaven, because it is a happy place. And it is surrounded by darkness and torment and suffering. So those are three places, Vingolf, Brimir, and Sindri, where we probably are going to find ourselves winding up, and not in Valhalla, even if we die in a battle. And of course there is Ludnir and Hell's Great Hall, and then we could live in the shadow or mirror world that is Hell. So, of course, there's a whole lot of other places talked about in Norse mythology. So, why not talk about them? Well, I will. I'll talk about them a little bit. We've already talked about Valhalla, but that's in Gladsheim, which is Bright Home. Gladsheim is also home to a 13-seat hall where Odin calls council. And his seat is Hilskjalf, which is the high seat. And of course, Valhalla also exists there, the Hall of Slain, you know, with roofs of shields and what have you. Then there's Folkvanger, which I've already talked about, which is the field of host, and that's where Freya's Hall Rumnir is. Then there's Thor's Hall, and that's Bilskirnir, crack of lightning. It is the largest of all the halls and contains at least 540 rooms. The translations are different. Some say 540 halls within it, others say 540 rooms. But we'll tell you, if you really want to look at it, it pretty much has to be 540 great halls, as in there's 640 doors from which 100 warriors wide come out in Valhalla. So that means there's at least 640 rooms, not to mention different, the great feasting room and great hall where they eat the boar. So therefore, they say Thor's is the biggest. It has to be 540 great halls within it. Now, then there's, that exists in Thrudvanger. Thrudvanger is the field of power, which makes sense because Thor is pretty much the god of strength. And then there's Breidablik, which is broad, gleaming view. That's Baldur's Hall. They say nothing unclean, evil, impure can enter. That just kind of goes to push the image of God as the pure, radiant light. Almost the sun rays personified, which I know that's kind of, you're able to interpret Frey as that, but he is the redeeming qualities of light on the earth that are antithesis, but also the necessary opposite to darkness that is his brother. There's Ydalar, which means the Udale, right? And it's the Hall of Ullr. Ullr is archer god, hunting god, minimal god of war, one of the more ancient gods, and a god of skiing. So, why does the archer god have you around? Because you make the best bows in every pre-modern European tribe, and people knew that. So, it was said to be a tooth gift from Frey, and it was in Alfheim. It wasn't in Asgard. So, what's kind of interesting is a tooth gift, and tooth gift is when you cut your first teeth, you get a gift by your father, godfather, patriarch, whoever is looking over you, your liege lord, whoever is your benefactor, or you are a benefactor from, they will give you a tooth gift. So his tooth gift was Ydalar, and that was from Frey. There's also Glintnir, Shining Hall, and that belongs to Forseti. It says it has pillars of red gold and a roof of silver. It's where all laws and conflicts are resolved, which makes sense. There's the high seat and the pillar and all that. So Forseti is the god of law and justice, so it makes sense that he would have a place where law was conducted. There's Himinbjorg, which means the Heaven's Castle, or you could translate to Heaven's Mountain because you're looking at proto-modern Norse mountain roots there. So that's Heimdall's seat, and it sits at the joining of the Bifrost and the realm of Asgard. It sits right on the edge of heaven and the realm of the gods and the Bifrost, which can transmute humans or anything up to the realm of the gods. Then there's Notun, that's Njord's. It's a ship enclosure instead of be by the sea. This is very important because Njord is, you know, god of the sea, but then there's also Aegir, which is arguably a stronger deity. I know he's kind of a giant, but and his wife Ran, they are arguably stronger and twinning parts of the sea. I mean, if you look at the Lokasana, where Loki really gets shit dealt to him, and where the death of Baldur occurs and the fleeting, that's in Aegir's hall. And Aegir never has his hall named. It's believed to be the ocean itself, because life, of course, needs water to spring from, and the water was so important to the Norse people. So it's said to be a regular feast location, and even its importance is shown by the fact that Thor and Tyr gave Aegir the largest blue kettle in the world, which you can see in another bit of writing. So then there's Landvide, that's Vidar's, and that's surrounded by perfect nature and isolation. It always is blooming, it's always green, it's always lush, and that kind of shows Vidar to be one of the main resurrection gods, or one of the main gods that he's really indicative of the regrowth of the world after Ragnarok. Then there's Fensalir, that's Frigga's, and that's her land, but it's the Fenlands. And the Fenlands, I mean, I know you can see heather up here, but Fenlands would be the marshlands, the bogs, as Europe was thawing out after the last ice age. Post-glacial rebound hadn't really happened yet. I mean, this would have been a shoreline before post-glacial rebound. Post-glacial rebound is when the ice sheets recede, their weight is off the earth, and slowly the earth rises. So there was a lot more marshy bits across Europe, and they were the fens. That was where they would write in Beowulf that Grendel would prey upon those in the fens. Then we have Sokvebek, and that's also possibly connected with Fensalir, as it translates to a sunken bank. That's where Odin and Saga are postulated to be. Saga is postulated to be Frigga because she's only mentioned once. They drink happiness, which people like Jacob Grimm think is immortality, from golden cups sitting on the edge of the sea. So it's really, really interesting there, and it's possible that Saga is another name for Frigga. And then we have a couple notable locations that I'd like to speak about aside from the halls. But before I go into speaking about that, so those are all these halls, and they're referenced a whole bunch of times in a few specific writings that I can't really think of right now off the top of my head, but I can refer you to them. The one is where Odin and Frigga want to see which one of their foster children is better, and it's Odin was punished and tortured by sitting in between two fires for 8 days, and it was only Frigga's foster child that brings him a cup of mead to satiate him. And after that, he starts to enumerate many of the halls. It starts with a G, and I can't remember which Grimmismal is where that's enumerated. And then also Glyfgening is another one. I know I butcher that. Listen, I might have been raised with this stuff, but I was never raised with a proper translation or proper expression of it in a Norse or Nordic language. I tripped through. I mean, as a young man, I thought it was, I didn't know how to say Yggdrasil. I thought it was Yggdrasil. What do I know? Y is sometimes a vowel in sky, and so it's kind of like an I. Let's say Yggdrasil. But it's Yggdrasil. Alright, so back onto these couple locations that I wanted to talk about. There's Vigrid. Vigrid is the plane of battle where Ragnarok will occur, right? Because of that, and it's a massive place, you can read about it if you want. Because of that, there's all kinds of different implications there. They say it's a lot of the location of some of the halls that exist after Ragnarok. There's Gimli, and that's the place where the survivors of Ragnarok will live in everlasting beauty. And possible in the former setting of the Ragnarok itself, which would be Vigrid. And it is in Gimli that they say some of the halls of death are like Vingolf, Brimir, and Sindri. So then there's also Idavalar. Idavalar is where the gods get together to talk about things, and it's also postulated Gimli might be there. So I hope this was a little bit enlightening. I mean, this is by no means a complete list. There are a ton of more locations enumerated in the sagas. You've really got to read them and do your own list there. I just began to finally start working in a foreign country where I only know a little bit of the language, so I'm kind of preoccupied. I don't have the ability to go through all the myths, but I mean, let's count it off. Places we know where we're going to die, where we can go when we die. We have Valhalla, Folkvanger, Eludnir, Vingolf, Brimnir, Sindri. That's 7, along with Nostrand, which is a torturous place, Niflhel, just the mirror world that is hell, and then Hvergelmir. So now we have at least 9, right? At least 9 places where you can wind up after death. Of course, the sacred number is 9, so that might be significant. But stop just obsessing over Valhalla. There's all these other halls we can go to. And honestly, Vingolf is a place that we probably all want to go to, because it shows you're virtuous and it shows you laid down your life doing what's right. And we don't all have to be superior to everyone else. We aren't all godlike. We aren't all something better. So if we can go to a hall that represents righteous people slain in battle, what could be better than that? If you think that you're going to go to Valhalla, it's kind of narcissistic. You think you're as good as a champion from the legends, a Siegfried, a Sigurd, a Beowulf, and come on now. We are not able to label ourselves that. Others are who should label us as heroes. So then, of course, after that, we have the halls of Sessrumir, Bilskirnir, Breidablik, Ydalar, Glintnir, Himinburg, Girs, Hall, Noatun, Lenviti, Fensalir, and the list goes on. So let's keep that in mind. I hope this answers some questions for a lot of people that often ask me about where else can you go. This has been a video a long time ago I should have made, but you know, life's busy. And by no means is this a complete list. Listen, there's a lot out there. But just so you know, there are other options besides just Valhalla. And I had somebody asking me about Hammer as well. They didn't think they were worthy enough to wear it. Don't worry about that. If you don't think you're worthy, don't wear it. But don't think you have to be some strong man. Yes, it's Thor's symbol, but it is also a symbol of unity amongst those who believe in the ancient Azir faith, or ancient Nordic faith, you know, that try to live up to the virtues and representations of the gods and the people who lived more in harmony with nature, but also more fulfilled lives, so to speak. There's nothing magical about this. You don't have to wear this if you're only dedicated to Thor. To think that you're only dedicated to Thor, that kind of brings up some concepts of monotheistic cults that are prevalent in the world today. There's 3 big ones, the Abrahamic ones. And don't worry about any of that. Don't matter. It really does not matter. If you feel you should wear it, you should wear it. You don't got to be a strong man. You don't got to be a tough guy. You can just honor your ancestors. You know, there's plenty of people wearing crosses that just do it for style. So, as always, I leave you my 2 pups. 2 of my pups. Got 4 of them. I inherited a little one. Don't go thinking anything funny. And my lovely city of Gothenburg. And I'll do a little zoom around, but enjoy your own Nordic journeys, my friends. I hope this has been illuminating, if not enlightening. Thank you.